The night was finally winding down, and honestly, the wine had been flowing a little too easily for everyone's good. My living room was loud, filled with that kind of buzzing laughter you only get when your best friends have had a few drinks, and the jokes start getting a bit more adult than usual. My wife, Claire, we've been married 6 years now, had that specific look in her eyes. I know it well. It's that Chardonnay glow that shows up after glass number 3, right when her internal filter starts to head for the exit. Look, we all know what they say about confidence, Marcus joked, waving his wine glass around so much I thought he was going to paint the walls red. It's not about the size of the boat, guys. It's the motion of the ocean, right? Everyone got a good kick out of that, myself included. I've heard plenty of locker room talk at these get-togethers before, so I didn't think much of it. But then Claire leaned in. She had this little mischievous smirk on her face. The exact same look that hooked me when we first met at a bookstore 7 years ago. The room suddenly got quiet, and her voice carried right through it. Well, she said, I hate to break it to you, but sometimes the size definitely matters. Then she paused for effect, holding her hands apart in this totally exaggerated way. My ex, Grant? Now, that guy was... Well, let's just say Owen here is more like a little rowboat compared to a massive yacht. The silence that followed was the kind that makes your ears ring. I could feel every single person in that room looking at me, just waiting to see how I'd take it. Jennifer, Claire's best friend, let out this awkward, forced laugh just to break the tension. Marcus suddenly decided his phone was the most interesting thing in the world. Claire realized she'd messed up instantly. All that wine-fueled confidence just drained right out of her face, and you could see the sheer horror sinking in. Owen, I'm so sorry. I was just kidding. Baby, you know I didn't mean. I didn't say a word. I just set my wine glass down very carefully. My hand wasn't shaking, but I felt this cold, heavy sensation settling deep in my chest. It wasn't exactly anger. It was something else. Something I'd been keeping under wraps for 6 long years. Grant, I said, keeping my voice low. You're talking about Grant Sterling, right? The guy from college? She nodded, her face turning ghost white. Owen, please. I'm so incredibly sorry. That was stupid and mean and... No, it's fine. I cut her off. I sounded calm. Way too calm, probably. Actually, I think it's time I told you something. Something I've been sitting on for a very long time. Our friends started doing that thing where they shuffle around and talk about heading home, sensing the danger in the air, but I held up my hand to stop them. No, stay. Seriously. You're all here, you might as well hear the rest of this. Claire's eyes were huge now, just pure confusion and fear. She tried to reach for my hand, but I stood up and moved away. I needed some space for what I was about to say. You've brought up Grant plenty of times, I said. The college sweetheart. The big one that got away. The high-powered lawyer who supposedly broke your heart when he moved out to Seattle. The guy you compare me to every time you think I'm not listening to the disappointment in your voice. That's not true, she whispered, but we both knew there was plenty of truth in it. I took a deep breath. What you don't know, what you've never known, is that Grant and I actually ran into each other 3 years ago. This was way before tonight. Way before you made that little joke. The room was so quiet I could hear the hallway clock ticking. Claire's breath hitched. It was at a legal conference in Chicago, I continued. I was there doing some pro bono work for my firm, and he was one of the keynote speakers. Grant Sterling, the golden boy of corporate law. I recognized him immediately from those old photos you keep in that box in the closet, the one you think I don't know about. Claire's hand flew to her mouth. Jennifer was leaning in now, completely hooked on every word. I wasn't planning on talking to him, I said. I mean, what's the point, right? But then I saw him at the hotel bar later that night, and he wasn't by himself. I stopped for a second, just watching her face. She needed to hear this. Maybe she'd always needed to hear it. He was with someone, and what I saw that night. It changed everything I thought I knew about the guy you've been secretly measuring me against all these years. That bar at the Palmer House has that old-school, classy vibe. Lots of dark wood, brass everywhere, and heavy leather chairs. It's the kind of place where 1,000 business deals and probably twice as many affairs have gone down. I'd gone in there to unwind after a brutal day of depositions. Just me and a glass of scotch. That's when I saw him, Grant Sterling, in the flesh. He looked just like the pictures, only older and more polished. He had the expensive suit, the Rolex that caught the light, and that same confident grin I'd seen a dozen times in those photos. He was sitting at the bar with a younger guy who looked incredibly nervous. Their body language told me everything I needed to know. I've spent years in family law, so I know the signs. I should have just walked away. I should have finished my drink and gone up to my room. But I couldn't. Maybe I was just curious. Or maybe I was thinking about those photos Claire kept. Either way, I needed to see this man she never quite got over. Their conversation started getting loud. The younger guy was actually crying, trying to keep it down but failing miserably. Grant's face was bright red, his jaw tight. I couldn't hear every word, but I caught the big ones. Mistake. Career. Can't tell anyone. Here's money. The younger guy suddenly stood up, almost knocking his chair over. You're a coward, he said, loud enough for half the bar to hear, and then he bolted out of there. Grant just sat there with his head in his hands. And then I made a choice I've thought about 1,000 times since. I walked right over to him. Rough night? I asked. He looked up, totally embarrassed. You could say that. Just stress at work. I could have let it go right there. I probably should have. But I sat down anyway. I don't think that was about work, I said. His eyes narrowed. I'm sorry. Do I know you? No, I told him. But I know your ex-girlfriend, Claire Chin. Well, she's Claire Sterling now. She's my wife. The color left his face instantly. Owen. You're Owen. It wasn't a question. Apparently, Claire had mentioned me. They'd been messaging on LinkedIn here and there. I'd seen it and just pretended I hadn't. That young man, I said, choosing my words carefully. Is he the real reason you left Seattle? Grant's whole perfect image just crumbled. His hands were shaking as he grabbed his drink. I don't know what you think you saw. I think I saw the secret you've been hiding for years. Maybe your whole life, I said, leaning in. I'm a lawyer, Grant. I do family law. I've seen this story 100 times. The guy who has it all, the career, the reputation, the family name, and he's terrified for people to know who he actually is. He was quiet for a long time. Then he looked at me and said, if you tell anyone, my career is over. My family. My dad's a federal judge. My brother is running for Congress. This would destroy everything. I'm not here to ruin your life, I told him. But I need to know something. Claire, did you ever actually love her? That question seemed to finally break him. His eyes filled up with tears. I tried, he said. God, I tried so hard. She was perfect, Grant told me that night. Beautiful, intelligent, exactly what my family expected of me. I really tried to convince myself I could make it work, that if I just tried hard enough, those other feelings would eventually just go away. But they didn't, did they? I asked. No, he said, his voice cracking. I moved to Seattle because I couldn't keep the lie going. She deserved so much more than a man who could never love her the way she needed to be loved. But I couldn't tell her the truth. You have to understand, in my world, a truth like that would end everything. I understood better than he thought. In my line of work, I've seen way too many lives get shredded by secrets, the massive gap between who people really are and who the world expects them to be. And the young guy tonight? I prompted. Michael, he said. We met at a conference about 6 months back. For a second, I actually thought I could have something real. But he wants a life, you know? He wants a real relationship, not just secret hotel rooms and a bunch of lies. Grant gave this bitter little laugh. He's a lot braver than I'll ever be. We sat there and talked for hours. He spilled everything. The years of confusion and denial. The engagement to Claire that was really just a desperate play for normalcy. And the years of casual flings followed by soul-crushing shame. He talked about his father's expectations, the political goals of his family, and the weight of a reputation that forced him to play a character every single day. Before we left, he made me promise him one thing. Please, he begged. Don't tell Claire. Not about tonight and definitely not about any of this. Let her remember me as the guy who got away, not the coward who used her as a human shield. And I kept that promise. For 3 whole years. I kept it every time Claire brought up his name with that wistful look in her eyes. I kept it through every comparison she made without even realizing she was doing it. I kept it through every single moment where I felt like I was the second-choice runner-up to a ghost. Until tonight, Claire's face had gone from pale to a sickly gray color. She was gripping the armrest of her chair so hard I thought the wood might snap. It was the only thing keeping her upright. "What exactly did you see?" she whispered. Our friends were basically statues. They were caught in that awkward spot where they desperately wanted to leave but couldn't look away from the absolute train wreck happening in our living room. Jennifer had her hand clamped over her mouth, and Marcus wasn't even pretending to look at his phone anymore. "I saw Grant having a total breakdown," I said, "with a younger guy named Michael, a guy he was seeing. You could have heard a pin drop." Claire's eyes went wide with confusion. "Seeing him? What do you mean, seeing him?" "I mean," I said, choosing my words very carefully, "that Grant is gay. He's been gay his whole life. Your entire relationship, those 3 years, the engagement, it was all just his way of hiding that from his family and the rest of the world." "No," Claire said, shaking her head fast. "No, that's not right. We were together for 3 years. We were engaged, Owen. You were his beard, Claire," I said. Came out harsher than I meant it to. "You were his cover. He cared about you in his own way, sure. No, he never loved you the way you deserved to be loved. He couldn't. He was in love with someone else, just not anyone you could have ever competed with." Suddenly, Jennifer spoke up. Claire, that explains so much. You always used to say he felt distant, like he wasn't ever fully there, that your physical connection was. Well, stop, Claire snapped, holding up her hand. Just stop. She turned to me, and I could see the tears finally starting to fall. "Why didn't you tell me? If you found out 3 years ago, why would you stay silent?" "Because he asked me not to," I said simply. "And honestly, a part of me thought you needed that illusion. You'd already turned him into this perfect, legendary man in your head. If I took that away and told you the truth, who would you have left? Just me? Regular, boring Owen, the guy you settled for?" "I never settled," Claire whispered, "but there wasn't much heart in it." "Didn't you?" I challenged. "Every time you brought him up. Every time you looked at me like you were measuring me against some impossible standard. Every family dinner where your mom asked when I'd finally make partner like that nice Grant boy would have. I heard all of it, Claire. I felt every single comparison." Marcus cleared his throat, looking like he wanted to bolt for the door. "Maybe we should head out." "No," Claire said sharply. "Stay. He's right. You all heard what I said tonight. You all watched me humiliate my husband in front of his friends. You should hear the rest of this, too." She turned back to me, and I saw something in her eyes just crumble. "I did compare you. It wasn't always on purpose. But, God, Owen, I'm so sorry. I convinced myself I'd lost this great, epic love, that I'd traded passion for safety. But he never loved me at all, did he?" "I think he cared for you," I offered. "Like you care for a close friend." No, he wasn't in love with you. He was in love with the idea of being normal and meeting his family's expectations. You were just a part of the performance." Claire buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking as she started to sob. Jennifer tried to move in to comfort her, but Claire waved her off. "I need to hear it all," she said. "What else did he tell you?" "That he moved to Seattle because he couldn't keep lying to your face," I said. "That he broke off the engagement not because you weren't good enough, but because he knew he could never be the husband you actually deserved. Watching you plan a wedding to a man who could never truly be yours was tearing him apart. He ended it because it was the only honest thing he had left to give you." "So he was being noble?" Claire asked bitterly. Breaking my heart was his version of being kind? In a weird way, yeah. He could have married you. He could have spent decades pretending, having flings on the side while you sat there wondering what was wrong with you and why you couldn't make him happy. Instead, he walked away. A long, heavy silence stretched between us. Finally, Claire looked up at me, her eyes red and puffy. And you? You married me knowing I was comparing you to a lie this whole time. Why? The question just hung there. Why had I done it? Why stay quiet? The answer was a mess of 1,000 little things. Because I loved you, I said. And I really believed that, eventually, you'd finally see me. Not as a backup for Grant, but as your partner. Your equal. I thought time would fix it. But it didn't. No, she whispered. It didn't. And tonight, I continued, when you made that joke, when you threw me under the bus for a cheap laugh in front of our friends, I realized that maybe it never will. After our friends finally left, shuffling out with awkward mumbles and promises to call, Claire and I just sat there in the quiet. The half-empty wine glasses were still scattered around, leftovers of a normal night that had gone completely off the rails. I need to understand, Claire said eventually. You've known this for 3 years, Owen. We've had anniversaries, holidays, trips. You kept this inside through all of it. Why tell me now? Why tonight? I leaned back against the sofa, feeling completely drained. Because I'm tired, Claire. I'm exhausted from being in second place to a memory. I'm tired of feeling like I have to earn something that should have been a given. Your whole heart, not just the leftovers Grant didn't want. That's not fair, she started to say. I looked her dead in the eyes. Be honest. How many times have you wondered what if? How many times have you looked at me and thought about how Grant would have done things differently or better? She didn't say a word. And honestly, that was all the answer I needed. I kept his secret because he asked me to. I told her. And honestly, because I knew exactly what it would cost him if people found out. His father, the federal judge, the guy has made a career out of opposing LGBTQ rights. His brother's entire political campaign is built on traditional family values. If Grant came out, it wouldn't just be his life on the line. It would have nuked his family's whole carefully crafted image. So you protected him, Claire said, her voice hollow. But you didn't protect me. You just let me keep believing I wasn't good enough, like I'd lost the love of my life. I tried to show you the truth every single day, I said quietly. In every small thing I did. Every time I listened to you vent about work. Every time I backed your dreams. I tried to prove that what we had was real, and that it was enough. But you couldn't see it. You were too busy mourning a fantasy that never even existed. Claire stood up abruptly and walked over to the window, looking out at our quiet street. You should have told me. The second you found out, you should have said something. Would you have even believed me? I challenged her. Or would you have just called me a liar? Would you have said I was just jealous and trying to trash his memory? She didn't say a word. We both knew I was right. There's something else, I added. Something I haven't mentioned yet. She turned around, and I could see the fear in her eyes. What now? Grant and we stayed in touch. Not a lot, maybe 4 or 5 emails over the last few years. He'd check in to see how you were doing. He wanted to know if you were happy. You've been talking to my ex-fiancé this whole time? Her voice was rising now. He's been completely alone, Claire. Michael left him that night in Chicago. Grant's been living this half-life. Successful job, empty apartment, and secret hookups that just leave him feeling more hollow every time. He asked about you because you represented a time when he almost believed he could be the person everyone wanted him to be. I don't care, Claire said coldly. I don't care about his struggle. He lied to me. He used me. And you kept me in the dark. I did, I admitted. And I was wrong for that. But Claire, look at it from my side. Every time you said his name with that wistful tone, every time your mom asked why I couldn't be more like him, I was sitting there holding the truth. I knew you were pining for a man who could never love you back, and I had to stay silent. She sat back down on the couch, as far away from me as she could get. So what do you want from me now? I want honesty, I said. Real, raw honesty. No more comfortable lies. I need to know if you married me because you actually love me, or if I was just the safe, good enough option that happened to be available. How dare you ask me that, she snapped. Just answer the question, Claire. The silence stretched on forever. I could hear a car pass by outside. Our whole marriage was basically hanging by a thread. I don't know, she finally whispered. I told myself I loved you, and maybe I did. Maybe I still do. But you're right. A part of me was always comparing. Always wondering what if Grant hadn't left. And tonight, with the wine and everyone laughing, I wanted to feel powerful. I wanted to hurt you because I was hurting inside. Why were you hurting? I asked, genuinely confused. Because I feel like I'm not enough. She cried out. For you, for my family, for myself. I'm just average, Claire. I teach high school English and I never wrote that book I talked about. I'm just the girl who couldn't make her husband look at her the way Grant used to. Grant never looked at you that way anyway, I interrupted. That's what I'm trying to get through to you. Whatever you thought you saw in his eyes, it wasn't love or desire. It was a performance, and you fell in love with the act. She was sobbing now, the kind of deep shakes that take over your whole body. So what now? You've basically torched everything I thought I knew about my own life. Where does that leave us? I moved closer but didn't touch her yet. That's up to you. I've loved the real you for 7 years, not some perfect version. But I'm done competing with a ghost, especially one that wasn't even real. Neither of us slept that night. We stayed up until the sun came up, talking more honestly than we ever had. Claire opened up about her insecurities and how Grant leaving made her feel like she was the problem. She'd spent years trying to be enough to make someone stay. I told her how heavy it was to carry that secret, how every mention of his name felt like a stone in my chest. Around 3 a.m., Claire picked up her phone. I contacted him, she said. My stomach dropped. What did you say? I asked him if it was true. All of it. She showed me the screen. It was a simple, direct message. She deserved the truth from the source. We waited. At 3:47 a.m., her phone buzzed. Grant's reply was long. Claire read it out loud, her voice shaking. Claire, I'm so sorry. Owen wasn't supposed to tell you. Not because I wanted to keep hurting you, but because I'm a coward. I still am. You deserved someone who could love you completely, not someone using you as a shield. I ended things because I couldn't keep lying, but I couldn't be honest either. It was selfish. Owen is a better man than me. He loved you enough to keep my secret when he could have used it to look better in your eyes. That's real love, Claire. I hope you can forgive me, but more than that, I hope you see what you actually have. Claire set the phone down. Her hands were trembling. He knew. He's known the whole time that you were protecting him while I was busy comparing you to him. I made a promise, I said. A promise that hurt us, she said, looking at me with clear eyes for the first time in a long time. Why would you do that? Because he was in pain, I told her. And some secrets aren't mine to tell, even if keeping them costs me something. That's not normal, Owen. Most people would have thrown him under the bus years ago. I'm not most people. He was carrying enough weight. I wasn't going to add to it. Claire was quiet for a long time. I've been so blind, she said. You've been showing me exactly who you are for 7 years, and I was too busy chasing a fantasy to see it. I humiliated you tonight. I made a cruel joke about something private. You could have destroyed me with the truth, but you only told me because I needed to hear it. To save us. I want a marriage built on truth, I said. Not a lie about Grant, and not a lie that he was better than what we have. She reached for my hand. I don't deserve you. That's not how love works, I told her. It's not about who deserves what. It's about choosing each other. Every single day, especially when it's hard. I want to choose you, she whispered. Not as a backup, but as my husband. The man who was strong enough to carry a secret that hurt him just to keep from hurting someone else. That's the kind of person I want to be for you, too. The sun was coming up then, turning the room gold. The messy wine glasses from the night before looked like relics from a different life. "It won't be easy," I said. "We've got a lot to work through." "I know," she said. "But Owen, for the first time in 7 years, I'm actually seeing you, and I love what I see." 3 months later, we were in counseling. Claire apologized to our friends one by one. Most of them got it. Jennifer told her she'd been waiting for Claire to wake up for years. Grant ended up coming out to his family about 6 months later. It went about as badly as he expected. His dad stopped talking to him and his brother distanced himself for the campaign. But Michael, the guy from Chicago, saw the post and reached out. "They're taking it slow." Grant sent me an email that just said, "Thank you for keeping the secret when you could have used it. And thank you for loving Claire enough to tell it when she needed to hear it. You're a better man than I deserve to know. As for us, we're rebuilding." Claire finally wrote the first chapter of her book. It's about a woman who mistakes comfort for love and fantasy for reality. When she asked me to read it, I actually cried. I saw the truth of us in those pages. One evening, she came into my office and hugged me from behind. "You know what I realized today?" she asked. "What's that?" "That you're the biggest thing in my life. Not physically," she laughed, "but in every way that counts. Your heart, your integrity. The way you love. That's everything." I turned around and pulled her close. "Was that so hard to admit?" "Impossible," she joked, smiling. "Good thing I have a patient husband." "Patient," I agreed, "but not a doormat." "Never again," she promised, and I believed her. Sometimes the truth that hurts is the only thing that can heal you. And sometimes the man who seems smaller is actually the biggest person in the room. You just have to be willing to really look. Our marriage isn't perfect, but it's real. When Claire looks at me now, I don't see a comparison. I see recognition. I see love. And that is more than enough.